What do you get when you take the soulless abomination that is the Mind Flayer, give it a hunger for ancient arcane magic, add in a slight superiority complex, and provide it with the forbidden knowledge it requires to become functionally immortal? Well, short of a snappy punchline, that's how you get an Alhoon. As a bit of background, most Mind Flayers are bound to the psychic hold of an Eldar Brain, or an Illithid in fringe cases, with the cerebral overlord keeping tabs on the every action of their Illithid populace. In return for their undying loyalty and servitude, the psychic masters allow the Mind Flayer to integrate into a gigantic psychic network comprised of the colony's other Mind Flayers, as well as any intellect devourers and cranium rat swarms that happen to be part of the local collective. Upon death, the Mind Flayer's consciousness is then kind of uploaded to this network, essentially allowing them a semblance of immortality. Most Mind Flayers are content enough to follow this expected path, but one thing they simply cannot tolerate is the study of magic. Mind Flayers abhor the practice of anything arcane, and in the vast majority of cases, an Eldar Brain will strictly forbid the practice of any magic other than raw psionics. This is likely to limit the Mind Flayer colony's exposure to dangerous knowledge that may give them other ideas as to what's out there. But as with any situation, there are always outliers to the mainstream, and this is where Alhoons come in. The very first step on the journey to Alhoondom is for a Mind Flayer to become fascinated with all things arcane. From here, they seek out as much knowledge as possible, much to the chagrin of their fellow Illithids. Mind Flayer arcanists are shunned by Illithid society, and this prejudice eventually leads to the magically inclined horror breaking from the psychic bond of a colony and heading out on its own path. Originally, a group of 9 Mind Flayer rebels banded together, utilizing powerful psionic magic alongside forbidden arcane knowledge to concoct a shortcut to lichdom, thus transforming them into undead versions of their Illithid selves. These 9 referred to themselves as the Alhoon, which has since become the term used to name other Mind Flayer arcanists who elect to follow the same path. To achieve this form of demi-lichdom, wannabe Mind Flayer arcanists must complete a complex ritual that, while being time-consuming, takes nowhere near the same level of dedication required to become a true lich. This process requires at least 3 Mind Flayer arcanists to work together in order to create a Periapt of mind trapping. The first step is to find other like-minded arcanists that are willing to participate in this ritual. Once its interest in the weave is discovered, a Mind Flayer arcanist will immediately flee its colony, desperate to escape the wrath of its Eldar Brain. More often than not, this seems to lead the renegade Illithids to areas within the Underdark, dedicating themselves to locating other individuals that wish to complete the profane transcendence process. Despite the horrifying spectacle of the Alhoonification ritual yet to come, it is potentially a very human reaction to celebrate the mental freedom that these Mind Flayers appear to enjoy, away from the mental shackles of their Eldar Brain overlords. But this way of thinking is simply folly. Alhoons are far worse than their status quo following brethren, with their very ambition making them incredibly volatile and prone to doing anything it takes to survive. While a Mind Flayer will follow the will of its colony, a would-be Alhoon is all for one, and this can make them problematic, especially for an Eldar Brain. Once an escape has been made, and other magically inclined Illithids discovered, stage 2 is to create the aforementioned Periapt of mind trapping. This strange artifact, roughly the size of a human fist, can be made from an assortment of precious metals and gemstones, but is most commonly comprised of silver with emerald and amethyst inlays. During the Periapt's creation, the participating Mind Flayer arcanists must sacrifice the souls of sentient, living creatures, infusing them with the object over the course of a 3-day ritual. The resulting Alhoons transition to become undead, and gain additional years to their lives equal to the remaining life force of their unfortunate sacrificial victims. This means that it is well within an arcanist's best interest to target the longer-lived races for this purpose, making younger elves the preferred target for this ritual. That being said, during the first casting, the arcanists tend not to be too fussy, knowing that this is merely the first ritual of many. They will have a lot more time in the future to hunt down the perfect victim for round 2. Once this macabre ritual has been completed, the sacrificed souls become trapped within the now functional Periapt, alongside the presences of all the Mind Flayer arcanists that participated. The now Alhoons can communicate freely with each other while they remain bonded within the Periapt, and they can also communicate with the sacrificed souls as well as anybody who touches the object. The Alhoons have full control over this communication, and while they can speak freely, the sacrificed souls cannot, doomed to spend eternity with the other souls trapped within, and their Mind Flayer hosts. The Periapt of mind trapping functions for the Alhoons in a very similar way to that of a Lich's phylactery. A creature holding the Periapt has advantage on attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws against the Alhoons that created it, and those Alhoons suffer disadvantage on attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws made against the creature. In addition, the Periapt contains X trapped souls, where X is the amount of souls sacrificed during any one ritual. A creature can communicate with the souls and the Alhoons telepathically while it is holding the Periapt. It can't prevent communication from Alhoons, but can choose to silence the trapped souls. The Periapt has an AC of 19 and 10 hit points. Destroying the Periapt kills all souls and Alhoons associated with it. While the Alhoons originally united together under one collective purpose, that by no means rules out foul play after the act is complete. An Alhoon in possession of the Conclave's Periapt has a clear advantage over the other members, making this a cause for concern. While an Alhoon is definitely not going to destroy its own Periapt, it may use it to its advantage, blackmailing the others into doing its dirty work. An Alhoon in possession of its own Periapt could also seek to achieve true lichdom and ascend to become an even more powerful Illithid lich. This could be achieved through yet another ritual, this one requiring the Periapt itself to be sacrificed, destroying any souls and other associated Alhoon in the process. Because of this, each Alhoon is likely to have its own defenses and plots for the Periapt, protecting it from both outside and internal influences. It's worth noting that the Periapt, unlike a phylactery, does not prevent an Alhoon from death. It merely extends its life by granting it additional years through undeath. An Alhoon that is destroyed will have its essence trapped within the Periapt, but will be unable to benefit from resurrection, and will not reconstitute itself as a lich would. This sparks an additional reason for other participating Alhoon to be vigilant of their peers. We've talked a lot about what Alhoons are, and by this point they can be established as extremely dangerous foes that should be marked as kill-on-sight targets. They back up their terrifying reputation with a stat block to match, with 11 strength, 12 dexterity, 16 constitution, 19 intelligence, 17 wisdom, and 17 in charisma. They also have a bunch of strong saving throws, resistances, and abilities. Starting with the saves, they enjoy a +7 to con, wiz, and charisma saving throws, with an even better +8 to intelligence saves. On top of this, they are also resistant to cold, lightning, and necrotic damage, with straight immunity to poison damage, as well as the charmed, exhaustion, frightened, paralyzed, and poisoned status effects. They also benefit from magic and turn resistance, giving the Alhoon advantage on all saving throws against spells and other magical effects, as well as advantage on saves against any effect that turns undead. Alhoons have true sight up to 120 feet, and can communicate telepathically up to the same distance. Telepathy is a great ability that allows for psychic communication between creatures, the only stipulation being that the target creature must understand at least one language. This does not have to be shared between communicating creatures, allowing the Alhoon to transmit its thoughts to you, whether you want them or not. In battle, Alhoons are cold, calculating, and murderous, their main motivation being to keep themselves alive for as long as possible. As 12th level spellcasters, they are incredibly lethal, and combine their innate psionic governance with enhanced arcane knowledge to deadly effect. Now, their own self-preservation is their main focus, and against serious opponents, they are likely to fly to a strategic location before casting Globe of Invulnerability, ensuring a head start advantage. From here, the Alhoon can use its movement to retreat in and out of the globe during its turn, unleashing hell on its foes with an initial Mind Blast, followed by its multi-attack on subsequent turns, with which it can make 2 Chilling Grasp or Arcane Bolt attacks. As the Alhoon was originally a Mind Flayer Arcanist, I don't think it makes sense that the new, more powerful form would lose the spells from its previous incarnation, so I like to include the Mind Flayer Arcanist spell set for my Alhoons to draw from too. This opens up even more combat options. with spells such as Confusion, Lightning Bolt, and Telekinesis all being back on the table. I find this makes the Alhoon a much more terrifying and threatening foe to face. Another ability that the official rules like to make the Alhoon forget about following its transformation is the signature Mind Flayer Extract Brain ability. While no longer requiring the sustenance of brains to survive, it is well documented that Alhoons still partake in the delights of cranium consumption for nothing more than pleasure, meaning they still definitely do have the capability to perform the task of brain removal. That being said, Alhoons know that their strength is in their casting, so they will attempt to stay as far away from melee combatants as possible. The only exception to this, however, is if the stars align and the Alhoon is able to stun or incapacitate every member of the opposing party. This leaves them open to the now returned Extract Brain ability, from which a hit is, more often than not, the catalyst for a game over. On top of everything here, the Alhoon can also simply negate a spell 3 times a day. The caveat is that the spell must be of 3rd level or lower, but it is still a potent reaction to possess. On the other hand, if things start to turn and go against the Alhoon, it is likely to attempt escape, fleeing from the situation to recover and prepare for round 2. It's worth noting at this point that an Alhoon's Periapt does not stop it from dying, and the Alhoon knows that its shortcut to lichdom has this downside. With access to spells like Invisibility, Wall of Force, and Plane Shift, a fleeing Alhoon will pull out all the stops to escape. To help prevent this situation, an Alhoon fighting on home ground is likely to have set up arcane traps around its lair, and should you take the battle to its inner sanctum, it would be well worthwhile to scout and plan before charging in head-on, expecting an honourable combat. But where exactly might you encounter an Alhoon? These creepy casters are absolutely rife for plot hooks and storytelling. You could catch wind that a recently established conclave of Illithid arcanists are preparing for the Periapt ritual, and your party seek to end the vile process before it begins, rescuing the sacrificed victims in the process. Maybe an already established Alhoon has stolen a powerful arcane tome, and is plotting to use the knowledge within to enslave an Eldar Brain for its own use. An Alhoon with an Illithid army under its thrall is nothing short of a nightmare situation, and someone needs to put a stop to it before it's too late. Or perhaps you are a member of a longer-lived race and have heard tell of an Illithid arcanist in the area that is looking for a sacrifice to use for the Alhoon ritual. In order to prevent any harm coming to yourself or your people, you must prepare to confront the tentacled terror and learn of its plans in order to initiate an ambush before it gets the upper hand. However you encounter them, the Alhoon are voracious foes that will stop at nothing to achieve their goals. They are intelligent, plotting creatures that have the capability to outthink and outmaneuver all but the most well-organized opponents, with their undead alien minds providing excellent material to enrich your setting with a touch of eldritch horror. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video and learning all about the terrifying Alhoon. I'll be back with another one very soon, but for now, perhaps you want to go back to the start and check out an Astral Dreadnought creature feature, or maybe an equally alien monster, the Neogi, is more something that's up your street.